Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Fintech Nexus webinar. We have a fascinating discussion, one of the hottest topics in Fintech today, talking about embedded finance, how it is revolutionizing global payments. We've got two experts here with us today. We're going to get right into it. My name is Peter Renton. I am chairman and co-founder of Fintech Nexus, and delighted to be joined today by two experts. I'll get them to do quick intros now. Phil, why don't you go first?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everybody. My name is Philip Reichardt. I lead our enterprise sales team here in the US at Airwallex, which is a provider in this space and working with many very fascinating customers, the likes of Brex, Rippling, ZipHQ, and so on. I've been doing this for about 3 years. But prior to Airwallex, I was leading digital payments at Verifone. And prior to that, I worked at a bunch of startups in the payment space as well. So got kind of this payments under my belt now for over 11, 12 years.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Michael.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Philip, for joining me today. My name is Michael. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Brex. We're a spend management platform, so corporate cards, expense management, travel, all in one, and a partner of Airwallex. And prior to Brex, I was at a company, SoFi, in the student loan fintech space, consumer side. And so I've been in the fintech industry for about 10 years and excited to be here today.
Okay, great. Well, what we're going to do before we get into our discussion, we are going to go just through a very small number of slides here. And I want to just, I'm going to hand over to Phil here in just a second. I am going to move my bar here. I didn't realize that was going to be in the way. Okay, so let's get it going here. And Phil, I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Right, so as Peter said, really just wanted to set the stage today before we jump into our panel and share with you a few insights of what we see here at Airwallex, since we're serving this broader space for quite some time now. And what we're seeing is really a strong increase in the embedded finance space and interest from customers like Brex, right? So be that fintechs, software platforms, or even marketplaces, they're really revolutionizing the financial landscape by embedding and providing this wide range of financial services right within their platform. So meeting their customers where they're at and providing value-added services within their solutions. And so just to set the stage a bit and why this is such a big deal is, if you look at the small business environment, over 70% of businesses still rely on personal credit to fund operational expenses, and 40% of businesses really don't use or don't have access to adequate financial services. So if you're a platform that is in touch with this group of businesses, you have a massive opportunity to grow your business and tap into this unmet demand. In fact, Goldman Sachs estimates that over $2 trillion are lost each year due to the lack of these services being available. But not only that, if you play your cards well and embed and follow and execute an embedded finance strategy, you can also benefit from other advantages. So for example, imagine a platform like Brex, who can combine really powerful software, and Michael's going to talk about that in a second, with the last mile payment infrastructure. Makes such a richer and more useful platform for your users, and allows you to grow and acquire new businesses in a differentiated way. It also makes your product much stickier and improves your customer experience, right? So rather than being a marketplace that your users come to find customers, you can really turn into a marketplace that your users use to find customers, charge customers, collect funds from customers, pay third-party vendors, or even have a place to store their funds in a secure manner. And all of that translates naturally into additional revenue streams. You can monetize these payments, you can engage in kind of a revenue share around FX and loan and origination fees if you're in the lending space. But doing all of that is hard, and we have lots of discussions with businesses, both small and large, that are really concerned about the complexity around doing this, right? So you need access to infrastructure around the world to enable these kinds of payments. There's a lot of regulatory questions and compliance that's needed and needs to be navigated when you start operating in a regulated space like money movement or wallets or just payments itself. And of course, when you're handling other people's money, you want to make sure that the technology you're using is bulletproof. So technology integration is a big topic that unless you find a partner to power this for you can be very, very burdensome and take years to do right. So not only on a domestic space, but imagine doing this globally and having to do and replicate this in many markets around the world. And so what Air Wallets offers to solve all of these problems really is access to the global financial infrastructure that we've built, right? So we've been doing this for 7 years now. We have really compartmentalized these components that you may need within your platform. And so be that bank accounts, FX solutions, global payouts, or even high interest accounts, which is a big topic nowadays. You can embed all of these components into your solution and your product without having to ever talk to a bank, without having to get licensed yourself, and really just leveraging the infrastructure we provided in a very efficient and fast way. So you can embed payments into your platform, you can handle global payouts, or even offer fully fledged banking as a service solutions. And what that translates into is a plethora of use cases that are now possible that were very, very difficult to enable before you would have access to such a global financial infrastructure solution. So for example, you can be a global bill pay platform that allows businesses, CFOs, finance teams to navigate, approve, and measure bill payments within your platform, but now also enable these bills to actually get paid and not just the software part of it. So you can service customers that are based in Europe that want to fund a payout to an Australian supplier very easily just by embedding these components. You can be a payroll company that is expanding globally and wants to fund a China-based employee with a payment originating in the US. Or if you talk about employee expense and employee spend management, and there's a number of solutions there now that are possible as well, including corporate cards that have pre-existing policies coded into them, or a very easy to use way to reimburse out-of-pocket expenses. And so to wrap things up, what we thought would be useful for those of you who are looking at the space and considering embedding financial services within your platform, just a checklist of things to look at. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but we will share a detailed list of this after the webinar, and will of course be available for questions. But we're looking forward to the discussion with Michael today and talking a bit more about what this means in real life example.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Phil. That was great. You sort of laid the groundwork for why embedded finance has become so popular and is really such a hot trend these days. So maybe, Michael, let's turn to you and just maybe take a step back and talk about how embedded finance is empowering fintechs like Brex to drive innovation, to meet the evolving needs of customers today in this very rapidly changing financial world. So maybe you could just give us the Brex perspective.
Sure. I think probably helpful to start with the global part of our expense management product. And so for Brex, as we were looking to serve an increasingly global customer base, and what I mean by global is, post-pandemic, companies now are much more likely to be either remote or hybrid, and therefore they're much more willing to hire folks outside the US. If they're a US company or if they're a foreign company, startup or tech company especially, very likely to hire folks in the US, and not just because they want to operate in a foreign market for sales, but it could just be access to talent, right? And so there's a whole host of companies that have started to form that are helping companies manage teams across different geographies. And Brex is one of those companies. And so the way we deal with it is as part of our expense management platform, we manage employee expenses and reimbursements, and we do that in multiple countries around the world. And we make the process and product seamless. And so embedded within Brex is money movement that is powered by Airwallex across a number of different countries. And Airwallex allows us to sort of embed their international money movement. And I can get into more specifics about what I mean by that in a number of different ways. And managing that from one API, and that's kind of the concept of embedded finance, at least in this case. Of course, embedded finance can mean embedded lending, it can mean lots of things, but in the context of what we're talking about here, it's like embedded money movement, which is accessed, which is a regulated space, a space that involves foreign exchange and lots of connections with different banking institutions around the world. And so that's what we're looking to Airwallex to help solve.
Okay, so that's really interesting, and I mean, I feel like we live in interesting times, right? Because this would have been so much more complicated, 5 or 10 years ago, because the technology just wasn't available. So maybe, Michael, turning back to you, sort of as you look out over the market today, obviously, Brex is one of your partners, but you have others. I'd love to kind of get your sense of what you see as some of the use cases and how the industry is really embracing this new way of doing business.
Yeah, so I think a couple of use cases that are probably going to resonate with folks on the call when you have employees in any entity, domestic or foreign, there's like a set of expense management tasks that people need to do. One is, spend money on either a corporate card or personal card or any way, right? And when you do that, if you're using a corporate card, you expect that card to work. And so if you happen to be in Canada working at a US company, you expect the card that you're given to work in Canada, both online and in person. If you are let's keep using the Canadian example. If you're in Canada and you buy something with your own card and you want to get paid back for it, whether you're supposed to do that or not, it's going to happen, right? There's always going to be a scenario where you forgot your card, whatever, right? Even if everybody has one. And so say you buy something because, for the office that you want to be reimbursed for, you expect that reimbursement to go into your Canadian bank account that you use, and you expect that to come in Canadian dollars without, some sort of foreign wire fee. And then lastly, if you are managing a Canadian entity, right? If you're saying, okay, this is, let's just say Fintech Nexus Canadian subsidiary LLC, and you have a few Canadian employees there, the bills that they're paying for their corporate card, you as the manager of that program or the CFO or controller of the whole company, you expect that bill to be paid in Canadian dollars as well. So it's not as simple as just shipping an American Express card, via FedEx to someone in Canada, especially. And by the way, of course, card shipping is another piece, right? Which is people in Canada expect to receive a card in Canada without it having to go to the US first. And so there's this whole world of kind of making a seamless experience is, where Brex has been very focused. It's one of the big differentiators for us. And from an Airwallex perspective, in terms of some of the things that I talked about, right? For example, collecting from and paying employees in local currency. That's the kind of thing that, we would use embedded finance for with Airwallex. Collecting from a foreign subsidiary in a foreign currency is another example. So when we talk about foreign money movement, that's what I'm talking about and how it relates to the new ways that people are working.
Great. Thanks for that. So Philip, want to talk about what Airwallex is actually doing with helping fintechs like Brex. Obviously, Michael just described a pretty, how that's sort of working there. But beyond Brex, how is Airwallex helping other fintechs and marketplaces expand globally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and just in line with what Michael described, is this globalization has just been so accelerated so much over the last few years. And so you see this across many verticals, not just corporate spend management, but also payroll, logistics, supply chain, travel. And all of those have one thing combined in common, which is they're many times US-based clients or European-based platforms or even Asian-based products that are expanding globally and that don't want to just follow the same kind of traditional approach of doing it one country at a time, right? Going into Canada, as Michael described, finding a Canadian banking partner, talking to the regulator, setting up an entity, talking to the banks, many times flying into these markets to meet with the bank in person so that they understand how you operate. No, what these companies want to do is they want to grow globally and fast, right? They have customers that are based all over the world. They want to be able to enter Europe and the UK and other English-speaking markets many times all at once to really capture that momentum that they get from launching a global expansion campaign. And so what Airwallex does is it provides the infrastructure really needed to not only make payouts into these other markets, but also onboard and provide services to entities located in those markets without having to get licensed yourselves, without having to figure out, what the banking system works like or looks like. We're that end point and that local kind of leg that you can build on, with all of the compliance and regulatory infrastructure in place, and giving you access to that through one single API. So you can be a payroll company growing globally. You can be in the supply chain business that wants to start enabling payouts for Asia-based suppliers, and so on and so forth, all really streamlined with one single integration.
Right. So it sounds simple. I imagine it's not easy to integrate. We already have a question coming in here. And just by the way, just for the audience, this is a 30-minute webinar, right? So we are going to be done at the bottom of the hour. Now, how difficult is it to integrate these financial services into your platform? So Michael, maybe you can give us some sense of what the challenges were and how the integration went.
Yeah, and I think it's probably helpful to think about the alternative in some ways, right? So the alternative, we just talked a little bit about Canada as an example, but you could repeat that example in all the different countries in the EU, Latin America, Asia, right, Africa. And so I'm just naming continents at this point, but my point is that you could, the alternative is to go and find a bank in every country, right, and figure out how to use and connect with that bank system, agree to their compliance standards, go through your own compliance reviews, probably agree to some sort of liquidity buffer, right? Because they're not going to want to take exposure to you. And so you're now dealing with reserve accounts, compliance, check-ins, relationship management, and integrations in multiple different geographies rather than say just one. So I think it's probably helpful to understand the alternative. I think, as Philip mentioned, money movement is serious, right? So it's never going to be something where, today you just do it and it's live in, hundreds of countries and everything's good, right? It's going to take, for us, it was about a 6-month process. And I think that's, to be expected for the size of company we are and the complexities of what we were doing. I'm sure had it been life or death, we could have accelerated that some. But that just gives you a sense for the complexity that is in some ways being abstracted by the embedded finance, but also, the fact that we're dealing with so much foreign money movement in different jurisdictions. You also want to be careful as you're rolling this out, especially when you're dealing with people's money, right? Because if it's wrong, it's kind of the end of the world for people, right? It's very rare that you log into your bank account and, it's got the wrong balance. And if it did, people would not be happy.
No. So I want to switch gears a little bit and Philip, turn to you. And you work with non-fintech companies as well. You touched on some of them earlier, touched on some of the industries, but what, this is obviously a way for some companies to add new revenue streams. So maybe you could talk about when should a company start thinking about offering financial services as sort of a add-on revenue stream?
Yeah, so really it kind of depends on the vertical that you play in. But the way I always say, and kind of the discussions that we have is like, it starts making sense once you have a certain number of users and you have data and understand usage patterns of these users that would be really hard to serve by a traditional bank or financial institution, right? Good example maybe to bring up here is imagine taking an Uber and every time you get off of your ride, you have to first pull out your wallet and hand cash to the driver. It would just disrupt the experience. And Uber combined kind of the finding a ride, taking a ride, and paying for the ride in one easy transaction. Right? And so the same is true for businesses and can be true for any platforms and really any vertical out there, right? Where can you add value to your product by making that last step in the process so easy that you don't even have to think about it anymore, right? So CFO or VP finance just approved an expense and without thinking about it, it's paid. Or HR team approved a payroll run and without actually having to upload some kind of manual file into a banking interface, all of these employees have just been paid in multiple markets at the right FX rates. And we can keep on going with examples, right? In the logistics space, the same thing applies. You manage and broker flow of goods around the world. Well, guess what? These goods have to be paid. The shipping company has to be paid. The truck company that picks up the goods from the factory, the workers, the insurance, and so on and so forth. So as soon as you are kind of touching this connection between real world and money movement around it, you can add value by embedding financial services into your solution.
Right. So, Michael, turning back to Brex, what countries were you really focused on when you're doing this, and how many countries are you like? Because you talk about some of your clients probably have employees all around the world.
Yeah.
What's sort of the global footprint here?
So 50% of customers that are signing up for our contracted expense management, so our paid software platform Empower, are adding global seats. So it is definitely a big factor for Brex. And as you can imagine, Peter, it's not that there isn't one specific geography. I think the advantage of Brex, and this is why this concept of working with Airwallex and embedding their offering into what we do is so important, is because we are trying to offer breadth. So a company that comes to Brex, they know that we serve global. We don't. They may have employees in one geography because a senior employee there comes from that place, right? And then they may choose to have developers in Latin America because it's the same time zone, right? All kinds of companies are making different decisions. And so our goal was really breadth and offering, what you could call native experience or parity experience between domestic and international in as many geographies as possible. So, that would be over 50 for us.
Right. Wow. And so what's the, Philip, what's the global footprint for Airwallex? How many countries are you actually in right now?
So we can make payouts into pretty much any country that's not on the sanctioned list today.
Okay.
We can onboard customers and provide financial services to entities located in, I want to say, maybe 80 countries today.
Okay.
It's a pretty broad reach.
Right. Okay, another question coming in here, and if you've got a question, now is the time to get it in. How does Airwallex prevent fraud or account takeover, given the millions of e-wallets across jurisdictions?
Yeah, so to that, I would say we're fully regulated. It's a highly regulated space that we're playing in. Our compliance team is actually more people than our sales and marketing team combined around the globe. So we have obviously invested a lot of resources in both technology and people to combat fraud, including some very smart kind of machine learning technology to detect fraud and prevent it. So yeah, it's a big part of our business. And as Michael said earlier, right, this is the type of space where you don't want to mess up how much money you have in your account. So it's very important for us, and I think we have a good handle on it.
Right. Okay. Another question: how many financial licenses does Airwallex currently operate? I mean,
Probably a lot.
I don't know if you have an exact number there, but give us a range.
Oof, I don't actually know the exact number, but it's over 20 for sure. So we are fully licensed and regulated in many markets around the country, around the world, and around the country. I mean, even the US, you need multiple licenses, one per state actually. So yeah, it's massive. It's taken us a long time to get there.
Another question: who are Airwallex's clients? Are they mostly SMEs or service providers to SMEs?
So we actually have both, right? So we have a SME product where that's how Airwallex started, right? In serving small businesses and giving them access to wholesale FX rates and collection and payout accounts. And now on the embedded side, finance side, what we've done is we've opened up that infrastructure to other platforms that service small businesses or large businesses, like in the case of Brex, and taking that infrastructure to be created for small businesses and making that available to any platform out there that wants to leverage that in a way that we wouldn't be able to do so ourselves.
Right. So is there a specific kind of financial services Airwallex helps with? Obviously, we're talking about the payment space here, or could it be anything in financial services? Maybe that's the point of what are the other types of products?
Yeah, honestly, it's a really broad solution. I mentioned earlier, I've worked in payments for 11 years, but I was not prepared for the breadth of services and products that Airwallex offers. So we handle really everything from collections, be that through bank accounts, direct debit, credit card, alternative payment methods, to wallet that is FX enabled, and then global payouts, local payouts, SWIFT, as well as card issuing in one single solution. We're going to add lending to that stack very soon. So it's fantastic, right? Because as a platform, you can really pick and choose the modules that you need today, but also knowing that whatever you may want to build out in the future is going to be available within this ecosystem.
Oh, you're muted, Peter.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I had a bit of noise in the background here. So what question for Michael: what's Brex's plan to expand their business further now that you have this platform?
Yeah, I think for us, it's about going up market. So we launched Empower last year, which is our expense management platform, comes with travel. And we're well known for serving the startup space with a free product, but this paid enterprise product that we offer, which leverages Airwallex heavily on the global side of things, is targeted at companies with over 500 employees. So people that are used to buying software and contracting that, and who just need more sophisticated expense management, global travel kind of embedded in one. And so that's really where a lot of our focus is, on serving larger companies with this new product.
Okay, so I want to close with looking into the future and seeing, we've come a long way, it feels like, in the last 5 years, with products like this now making international expansion so much easier than it was before. But what can we look sort of 5 years into the future? What's it going to look like? How is it going to become even easier? Maybe Philip, you'd love to get your take.
Yeah, so great question. I think what I'm really excited about in this space is that access to financial services is getting democratized. Right? It no longer matters if you're a large Fortune 100 or a small business just starting out. You through the use of this technology have access to pretty much the same financial infrastructure. So 5 years from now, I think you can be a single entrepreneur somewhere based in rural Japan and operate and do business in the UK as if you were a large business based in the UK. Just as an example, just the access to this global infrastructure, making it so much easier to handle cross-border payments, is going to just enable use cases and solutions that are unthinkable right now.
So, Michael, last word. What do you think how this is going to evolve?
I think, look, the employees across, it's becoming an increasingly globalized world for talent. And so you're going to see more and more companies look to offer experiences for their employees across geographies at parity with the home base, especially as hybrid and remote work proliferate. So I think a lot of opportunities from financial services to help make that better.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Philip, thank you so much. Michael, thank you as well. Thank you obviously to the audience for tuning in, and thank you for Airwallex for making this webinar possible. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Peter. Bye.